Welcome back to GB News Tonight with me, Martin Daubney. Now, we're just a few weeks into the new Labour government and already the sun is setting on that brief honeymoon period. Yesterday, the Chancellor, Rachel Reeves, warned of tough spending decisions lying ahead in the approach to the autumn statement. And with the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, expected to sign off on above-inflation pay rises for nurses and teachers, the questions I'm asking tonight are, where is this money coming from? And will today's Skills England announcements make any difference whatsoever to the UK workforce? Well, joining me now in the studio to discuss this is the former Labour Party advisor and political commentator Matthew Torbitt. Matthew, welcome to the show. Isn't the big problem is quite simple. The biscuit tin is empty. £2.7 trillion in national debt. And lo and behold, Rachel Reeves today, we're in the worst economic inheritance since World War II. She's already blaming the Conservatives. And this has all of the hallmarks of some painful tax rises coming. Pay rises, bumper pay rises to teachers and NHS staff. Is going to cost $3 billion every year. They're also talking today about the 2-child limit. That's another £3.4 billion a year. That's a lot of red ink on the ledger sheets. Where is the money coming from?
Well, the money tends to come from either rises in taxes or cuts to public spending. Now, considering there isn't much of local authority spending and public services left to cut, you can only assume there's going to be some level of tax rises. I've always thought it would be politically sensible and savvy to raise capital gains tax to the... Rachel Reeves actually wrote as a backbencher in a 2018 paper that she would like to see it rise to the levels of income tax. I think if she did that, it brings in about 18 billion quid. So if you want to talk about things like the 2-child cap, that's just over 3 billion. You want to pay the public sector workers the suggested inflation-busting pay rises that have been suggested by an independent body, that's 5.5 billion. You've got change to spare. And only 3 in 100 people currently pay capital gains tax at the current rate.
But isn't the problem we've seen historically, if you squeeze the pips out of the rich, they clear off? In the 1970s, when the Labour government had sky-high taxes, people like the Rolling Stones, the Beatles, they went to America, they never came back. The benchmark was set. Those who pay the most tax are unlikely to passively sit around and just take it.
Yeah, I'm not suggesting taxing the pips off people, but I think I'm always a believer in the strong helping the weak. And currently, you think about during the COVID pandemic, we had Amazon, supermarkets, Uber even to an extent, making mass profits everywhere. They've got by on what they've done up to now. The idea that there's places like supermarkets are still...
But they're international corporations. If you tax them out of the UK, they'll clear off abroad. We live in a globalised world, the kind of world that Sir Keir Starmer loves.
I agree, but when we've got an economy that's 80% service-based, I don't think they'll clear off at all. This is a huge market for people still. And I think, the idea that we're not going to have an Amazon in this country or these companies that do well, that are huge, conglomerates. I don't think will be the case. And I think they've done well to cosy up to business enough that they can get away with it.
What we could do is lower taxes. We could lower corporation taxes. Saw it in the Republic of Ireland. We've seen it in Cyprus. Brexit was meant to give us that ability to be nimble. That might attract investment in, so the tax take will be bigger, rather than increasing taxes and forcing people offshore. But that's not likely anytime soon, is it? Because Sir Keir Starmer is flashing his garter to the European Union every single day.
Well, Keir's very upfront about the fact that he was a huge Europhile, and I think in many cases it's sensible to have a good relationship with the EU. How close that is will remain to be seen. And, I was always a believer, as a sort of reluctant Remainer, that I'd have been happy with things like EEA. I think why shoot yourself in the foot economically when you can leave the framework as it is? I think in an ideal world, everyone would like to lower taxes, but also, without sounding like a Conservative backbencher, the COVID pandemic has taken a huge hit to the public finances. Yeah, they were straight up about that.
They were tax rises that Sir Keir Starmer wanted more of. He wanted sooner lockdowns, harder lockdowns, longer lockdowns. Isn't that the point? We've driven the economy to near bankruptcy through those lockdowns. Sir Keir Starmer was a big part of it. And now the only way back is tax rises, precisely what the Labour Party's critics warned would happen.
Yeah, but you've got to be clever with the tax rises. I've also seen Rachel Reeves apparently moot the idea of using pension pots to invest in long-term infrastructure plans, which I think is sensible because, pension plans...
Nationalising the rails, that could be like 190 billion.
Yeah, but you're waiting again. They're trying to do it sensibly. I think where you're letting whereas Jeremy Corbyn and John McDonnell would have bought them straight back in, and it would have cost an absolute fortune. You're letting the contracts run out. You're letting them not go out to tender, and just bringing them back in house. It saves a lot of money in the process.
Well, let's talk about Sir Keir Starmer's Skills England package today to tackle Britain's fragmented and broken skills training system. Now, it stops short of Gordon Brown's British Jobs for British Workers manifesto pledge in 2009. But isn't the problem we have too much unskilled labour in Britain from immigrants coming in? And they're the ones who are doing the farm-picking jobs, manufacturing jobs. We haven't got a problem with skilled labour. We've got a huge problem with unskilled labour in huge amounts, and that's what's bankrupted the working classes.
I think that there's an element of that. I think we don't have a problem at times with skilled workers because, as I've said earlier, there's no industry left. You know, we see industries of a bygone era like steel in Wales just dying a death. I think if we're going to look at this long-term skills issue so that we're not reliant on migrant labour or whatever the politics Labour want to play with it is, there needs to be the right sort of skills, and it needs to be looking at long term. So what do we need for the future? We need skills of people that know how to build AI and harness that. We need skills in renewable and green energy, looking at cheaper bills, which cheaper energy will probably be a big part of.
Well, we had £190 bill rises promised today. I spoke to the Labour Minister on energy last week. £300 drops in energy prices we were promised through cheap renewable energy and 650,000 jobs. Still no indication where those jobs are, what they'll pay or how you qualify for them. Isn't all this just, it sounds great, but it's just going to take too long to train up a workforce?
It's going to take time, which is why I think they've also rolled the pitch to talk about a decade of renewal. Keir Starmer's very well aware this isn't going to happen overnight. It's not going to even happen in a first term. It's going to take 2 terms minimum. And to enable to gain the patience of the public to buy into your ideas, you've got to let them know up front, which I think they are doing. I think the other problem is we talk about low skilled. I think what we actually mean is low wage. Like this is what these sort of jobs are. The thing where I get worried, regardless of who the government is, how long is it until we're all low-skilled? If you look at things like Uber, whose whole mission statement is to have driverless cars, and people say AI is the future. It's here, it's happening, it's not the future, it's the present. How long until, you know, we've got people presenting the news that are AI, or we're getting
a better job?
Some people may agree, not myself, I promise. But and how long is it until we're all seen as unskilled labour, and those qualifications we've got to gain are basically meaningless? And that's what worries me more about how does Labour harness AI. And there's a lot of talk about regulation. How are they going to ensure that happens?
How will AI help people that used to vote Labour many, many years ago? Like, I'm from Nottinghamshire, from the coal belts. They were decimated by the influx of unskilled labour. Wages were driven down. The left used to stand up for a good, fair working wage for British workers. That's long gone because the Labour Party became addicted to cheap foreign labour. There's nothing that we've seen so far in terms of cutting down on that scale of immigration from Sir Keir Starmer. Perhaps we'll see it. Do we believe in miracles?
I don't know. I think regardless of who it is, I've always had a fear that the robots will take the jobs, right? It's happening, whether it be in supermarkets, whether it be on telephone sort of things. It's happening. And we have a choice to make as a society, whether you provide for people, whether that be through some sort of basic income or something where people are still feeling the benefits in their pockets but getting the benefit of technology.
So that's a big state. This is classic socialism. The Labour Party wants to expand the state, robots to take over, and you'll pay everyone to not work. That's what got us in this mess during lockdowns.
The alternative is what? Is probably some element of neo-feudalism where the 0.1%...
What does that mean for people who haven't swallowed a dictionary?
Well, anyone that owns anything, which will be the real top earners, we live off the land. We pay to live off the land. There's no jobs left. So, what else do? You've got to just pay, you work to survive, which is arguably what many people are out there doing now. So I think you make sure that all people are covered. You get rid of the welfare state. You need just ensuring people are getting a decent standard of living. That's where I fear that we'll head in the next 30 to 40 years.
A bright future of living off the farms, living in caves, while the robots take over and the richest get taxed to the hills and probably clear off abroad, and no industry comes in because the tax environment is too harsh.
So negative, man.
No, I'm just reading what you said, and I'm reading what's happening out there. Anyway, thank you very much for joining us.